swiped through the profiles on Tinder one night, hoping to find a connection online. Loneliness had become my constant companion since the pandemic, and I craved for a human interaction. That's when I stumbled upon a profile that caught my eye. Emily, with a captivating smile and sparkling blue eyes. We started chatting, and our conversations quickly moved from Tinder to texting and then to phone calls. Emily seemed perfect, smart, funny, and charming. She claimed to have been a nurse working in a nearby hospital, which made her busy schedule understandable. I looked forward to our daily calls. Her voice was a soothing balm to my isolated existence. One evening, Emily suggested we meet in person. She said she knew a cozy little coffee shop just a few miles away. My excitement was uncontrollable, as finally meeting someone such as Emily was everything that I was hoping for. It was an exciting time. On the day that we agreed to meet, I arrived at the coffee shop with butterflies in my stomach. I waited for what felt like hours, but Emily never showed up. My calls and texts went unanswered. Desperation took hold as I realized I had been ghosted. After feeling defeated, I returned home and decided to dig deeper. I searched for Emily's profile on Tinder, but it was gone. It was almost as if she vanished out of thin air, or never existed. I decided to move on, and days turned into weeks, and then I received a chilling message. It was a photo of Emily, or at least someone who looked like her. The text read, "We have Emily. If you want her to live, you'll do as we say." I began to panic, and I immediately went to the police with the information that was received. I gave them all that I have, and they told me that they would look into it. But it's been weeks now, and I'm starting to feel hopeless. Out of complete fear and not knowing what they're capable of, I followed their instructions, transferring money and providing personal information, all while they continued to taunt me with images of Emily's apparent distress. It was a nightmare that seemed endless, as I realized I'd fallen victim to a sinister scheme. Emily had been a fake, a facade designed to lure me in. I was now caught in a web of identity theft and extortion. The people behind this were ruthless, and my world spiraled into darkness. Realizing the dangers of meeting strangers online in the most horrifying way possible. I once met someone online through Tinder that seemed friendly at first. We chatted for weeks, sharing stories and personal details. We decided to meet in person, and my excitement was mixed with nervousness. We arranged to meet at a quiet coffee shop, but when I arrived, there was an eerie feeling in the air. The stranger who had seemed so kind online had a sinister aura in person. They had a cold, unsettling stare that made me feel afraid, but I wanted to give them a chance. As we sat down to chat, their conversation turned a bit dark. They started revealing disturbing things about themselves, things that they had never mentioned online. It was as if they had a hidden agenda. Panic crept in as I realized I was alone with this stranger. I excused myself to go to the restroom, hoping to make a quick escape, but when I returned to the table, they were gone, leaving a chilling note that read, "You can't escape me." My heart raced as I rushed out of the coffee shop, feeling lightheaded, nearly blacking out. To this day, I have no idea who that person truly was or what their intentions were. A stark reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind seemingly friendly online personas. I I swiped right on Tinder one lonely Friday night, hoping to find someone special. The app buzzed with excitement as I matched with a stunning profile picture that seemed too good to be true. We decided to meet at a small but quaint coffee shop the next evening. As I entered the cafe, the smell of roasted coffee beans filled the air, and I spotted her sitting in the corner, bathed in shadows. Her eyes gleamed with an eerie intensity as she greeted me, but I shrugged it off as nerves. We talked about our interests and lives, and her stories were captivating, but something about them felt off. She spoke of past relationships that had ended mysteriously, leaving me a bit spooked, but curious. I didn't want to pry since we're still getting to know each other. Despite this unease, I couldn't deny that I still had a liking to her. As the night wore on, she suggested we take a moonlit walk in a nearby park. Reluctantly, I agreed. Under the pale moonlight, we walked along a winding path surrounded by dense woods. My heart raced a bit, and I began to sense that something was terribly wrong. She seemed to know too much about me, even things that I hadn't mentioned. Then, out of nowhere, she stopped and turned toward me. Her face twisted into a sinister grin, telling me that she knows what I desire, in a whispering tone. My pulse quickened as I tried to back away, but the grip that she had on my arm was terrifyingly strong. At this moment, in the darkness, her true form was revealed. Her skin pale as death, her eyes glowing with a soulless light. She was no ordinary woman. She was a creature of the night, a Tinder match turned nightmare. I froze in fear of not believing what my eyes were seeing, leaving me paralyzed for whatever the creature wanted to do with me. I thought I was good as dead, but then a group of friends can be heard approaching down the path that we walked. This sent the creature off into the woods, as if she, or it, did not want to be seen by others. After that night, I realized the dangers of meeting others online, and although some nights I feel alone, being alone is much better than being food.
I nervously swiped right on Tinder, hoping for a spark in my love life. His profile was perfect, charming smile, shared interests, and overall genuine. We chatted for weeks and everything felt right. We decided to meet in person at a cozy cafe. As I walked into the cafe, my heart raced with excitement. I spotted him sitting alone at a corner table. He looked nothing like his pictures. My unease grew, but I approached him cautiously. Trying to hide my disappointment, I introduced myself. He smiled, revealing a set of crooked teeth. He introduced himself as John. We began talking, and it didn't take long for me to realize something was horribly wrong. His eyes were piercing and predatory. I began to panic as I realized his intentions were not friendly. Desperate to escape, I excused myself to the restroom. I fumbled for my phone and called my friend Abby to pick me up. I told her where I was and begged her to hurry. When I returned to the table, John was still there, smiling maliciously. I tried to engage in polite conversation while anxiously watching the entrance for Abby's arrival. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, Abby's car pulled up outside the cafe. I made my excuses to leave, but John lunged at me and pulled me by my wrist. I freaked out as I struggled to break free. The people in the cafe were oblivious to what was happening. Abby stormed into the cafe, and at last, John let go of my wrist. Once we were safe in Abby's car, away from John, we reported what happened to the police, but they couldn't find him based on the information I had. I deleted my Tinder profile that night, scared by the terrifying encounter with the man named John.
was lonely, desperate for connection in a world that had become increasingly online. So I turned to Tinder, hoping to find someone who could fill the void in my life. Little did I know, this decision would lead me down a chilling path. One evening, while swiping through countless profiles, I stumbled upon a mesmerizing photo. Sarah, her name was, and her smile could have lit up a room. We matched, and our conversations were electric. She seemed perfect, too perfect, as if she had been custom made to fit into my life. After weeks of texting, we decided to meet. Sarah suggested a secluded cabin in the woods for our first date. I know, it's a red flag, but she seemed perfect. She wanted to be away from the big city and away from the prying eyes of the world. I was thrilled at the prospect of escaping the confines of my mundane existence, and so it just seemed right. The anticipation was exhilarating. There was an underlying sense of unease I couldn't just ignore. As the day of our meeting was soon approaching, I received a message from Sarah telling me she needed my help with a personal matter. She claimed to be in a dire financial situation and asked for a substantial sum of money. Red flags waved in my mind, but I was blinded by my love for her. I agreed to transfer the money, believing that this was a small price to pay for love. The day came, and I drove to the cabin, my heart pounding in my chest. When I arrived, the eerie silence of the secluded woods enveloped me. Sarah was nowhere to be found. Panic began to set in as I realized I had been lured to a trap. I began to search the cabin. Inside the cabin, I discovered a disturbing scene. Walls covered in photographs of people just like me who had fallen victim to this elaborate scam. Their lives had been torn apart by the insidious scheme. It was then that I realized the horrifying truth. I was not alone. Others had fallen prey to this twisted game. And then suddenly, I felt a cold hand clamp onto my shoulder. I turned to see a figure shrouded in darkness, a sinister smile playing on their lips. It was Sarah, or at least the person I had known as Sarah. She revealed herself as the mastermind behind this online trap. I knew I had to act fast to escape her grasp. With adrenaline surging through my veins, I feigned compliance, pretending to be as helpless as she believed. In that tense moment, I subtly reached for my phone that was in my pocket. I continued to engage her in conversation, hoping she wouldn't notice my attempts to contact my friend, who had been aware of my plans to meet Sarah and knows that any text from me that seems scrambled or bizarre is enough to call the police. Seizing this moment of distraction, I lunged towards the cabin's door and bolted outside. Sarah, caught off guard, stumbled in her attempt to grab me. My heart raced as I sprinted through the dark woods, guided by the faint moonlight and the faint hope that the police would arrive in time. I could hear Sarah's enraged cries behind me, but I dared not look back. My phone buzzed with a message from my friend, confirming that the police were on their way. I continued to run, praying that I would reach safety before Sarah or her accomplices caught up to me. Moments later, the distant wail of sirens pierced the night, growing louder as the police closed in on my location. I emerged from the woods, gasping for air, and stumbled toward the approaching patrol cars. Seeing the flashing lights and uniformed officers gave me a sense of relief. The police apprehended Sarah, who was later revealed to be part of a larger criminal network specializing in online scams. Thanks to the quick response of law enforcement and the support of my friend, I had managed to escape the clutches of danger. My terrifying encounter with Sarah had left me shaken, but I had learned a valuable lesson about the importance of caution and skepticism when forming online connections. It was a narrow escape from the jaws of a predator,